Previously on World History and Geography.
The Gupta Empire in South Asia came to an end in the late 400s CE. First, the Huns from Central Asia were able to invade northern India. Then, beginning in the 700s, warlike Muslim tribes from Central Asia came in and carved northwestern India into many small kingdoms. Muslims would influence India for the next 1,000 years.
And now, our feature presentation.
Over almost 300 years, the Muslims were able to advance only as far as the Indus River Valley. Starting around the year 1000 CE, however, well-trained Turkish armies swept into India. Led by Sultan Mahmud of Ghazni, they devastated Indian cities and temples in 17 brutal campaigns. These attacks left the region weakened and vulnerable to other conquerors. Delhi eventually became the capital of a loose empire of Turkish warlords called the Delhi Sultanate. These Muslim sultans treated the Hindus as conquered people. Between the 13th and the 16th centuries, 33 different sultans ruled this divided territory from their seat in Delhi. In 1398, Tamerlane, or Timur the Lame, destroyed Delhi. The city was so completely devastated that, according to one witness, for months, not a bird moved in the city. Delhi eventually was rebuilt, but it was not until the 16th century that a leader arose who would unify the empire. In 1494, an 11-year-old boy named Babur, no, not Barber, Babur, no, not the Berbers, the Muslim North Africans, Babur, yes, that Babur,
Babur,
who was believed to be related to Genghis Khan and Tamerlane. Babur inherited a small kingdom in the area that is now Uzbekistan and Tajikistan. Babur built up an army and swept down into India. They called themselves Mughals. No, not Muggles.
Muggle,
Non-magic folk.
Mughals, which means Mongols. And they laid the foundation for the vast Mughal Empire. Let's take a moment to enjoy some dancing. Babur was a brilliant general. In 1526, for example, he led 12,000 troops to victory against an army of 100,000 commanded by a sultan of Delhi. After Babur's death, his incompetent son, Humayun, lost most of the territory Babur had gained. Babur's 13-year-old grandson took over the throne after Humayun's death. Babur's grandson was called Akbar, which means great. Akbar certainly lived up to his name, ruling India with wisdom and tolerance from 1556 to 1605. Akbar recognized military power as the root of his strength. In his opinion, a king must always be aggressive so that his neighbors will not try to conquer him. Like the Safavids and the Ottomans to the west, Akbar equipped his armies with heavy artillery. Cannons enabled him to break into walled cities and extend his rule into much of the Deccan Plateau. In a brilliant move, he appointed locals as officers. In this way, he turned potential enemies into allies. This combination of military power and political wisdom enabled Akbar to unify a land of at least 100 million people. That's more than was in Europe at that time. Akbar was a genius at cultural blending. A Muslim, he continued the Islamic tradition of religious freedom. He permitted people of other religions to practice their faiths. As Akbar extended the Mughal Empire, he welcomed influences from the many cultures in the empire. This cultural blending affected art, education, politics, and language. Speaking of language, Persian was the language of Akbar's court
Salam,
and of high culture.
Khuda Hafiz,
The common people, however, spoke Hindi,
Namaste.
the local language derived from Sanskrit. Hindi remains one of the most widely spoken languages in India today.
Fir milenge.
Out of the Mughal armies, where soldiers of many backgrounds rubbed shoulders, came yet another new language. This language was Urdu,
Adab.
which means from the soldier's camp, a blend of Arabic, Persian, and Hindi.
जैसा कि Arabic, Persian, Hindi वगैरह.
Urdu is today the official language of Pakistan.
Urdu is the national language of Pakistan.
The arts flourished at the Mughal court, especially in the form of book illustrations. These small, highly detailed, and colorful paintings were called miniatures. Some of the most famous Mughal miniatures adorn the Akbarnama, the Book of Akbar, the story of the great emperor's campaigns and deeds. Indian art drew from traditions developed earlier in the Rajput kingdoms. Akbar devoted himself to architecture too. The style developed under his reign is still known as Akbar period architecture. Its massive but graceful structures are decorated with intricate stonework that portrays Hindu themes. His capital city was made of red sandstone and is one of the most important examples of this type of architecture. Let's take a moment and enjoy some music. With Akbar's death in 1605, the Mughal court changed to deal with the changing times. The next three emperors each left his mark on the Mughal Empire. Akbar's son called himself Jahangir, or grasper of the world. However, for most of his reign he left his affairs of state to his wife, Nur Jahan, who ruled with an iron hand. Jahangir's son, Khusro, unsuccessfully rebelled against his father. It was another of Jahangir's sons, Shah Jahan, who became his successor. Shah Jahan could not tolerate competition and secured his throne by assassinating all his possible rivals. He had a great passion for two things: beautiful buildings and his wife, Mumtaz Mahal. In 1631 CE, Mumtaz Mahal died at age 39 while giving birth to her 14th child. To enshrine his wife's memory, Shah Jahan ordered that a tomb be built, as beautiful as she was beautiful. In Agra, fine white marble and fabulous jewels were gathered from many parts of Asia. This memorial, the Taj Mahal, has been called one of the most beautiful buildings in the world. The surroundings, well, maybe not so beautiful. The Taj Mahal's towering marble dome and slender minaret towers look like lace and seem to change color as the sun moves across the sky. The design of the building is a blend of Hindu and Muslim styles. The pointed arches, along with 130 feet high minaret towers, are of Muslim design, while the perforated marble windows and doors are typical of a style found in Hindu temples. Some 20,000 workers labored for 22 years to build the famous tomb. But while Shah Jahan was building gardens, monuments, and forts, his country was suffering. There was famine in the land. Furthermore, farmers needed tools, roads, and ways of irrigating their crops and dealing with India's harsh environment. What they got instead were taxes and more taxes to support the building of monuments, their rulers' extravagant living, and war. All was not well in the royal court either. When Shah Jahan became ill in 1657, his four sons scrambled for the throne. The third son, Aurangzeb, moved first and most decisively. In a bitter civil war, he executed his older brother, who was his most serious rival. Then he arrested his father and put him in prison in the Red Fort of Agra, where he died several years later. After Shah Jahan's death, a mirror was found in his room, angled so that he could look out at the reflection of the Taj Mahal. A master at military strategy and an aggressive empire builder, Aurangzeb ruled from 1658 to 1707. He expanded the Mughal holdings to their greatest size. However, the power of the empire weakened during his reign. This loss of power was due largely to Aurangzeb's oppression of the people, especially the Hindus. This oppression led to outrage, then to rebellion. Aurangzeb levied oppressive taxes to pay for the wars against the rebels, which led to more rebellions, which led to higher taxes to fight these rebellions, which led to more taxes. You get the picture. By the end of the reign of Aurangzeb, he had drained the empire of its resources. Over 2 million people died in a famine while Aurangzeb was away waging war. Most of his subjects felt little or no loyalty to him. As the power of his central state weakened, the power of the local lords grew. After Aurangzeb's death, his sons fought a war of secession. In fact, 3 emperors reigned in the first 12 years after Aurangzeb died. By the end of this period, the Mughal emperor was nothing but a wealthy figurehead. He ruled not a united empire, but a patchwork of independent states. As the Mughal empire rose and fell, Western traders slowly built their own power in the region.